welcome to day number 2. This is Chris Murray, and we got Kelly Nystrom here with 30 Wins. And, we're really excited to dig into day number 2 because it's all about discovering your own personal, authentic motivation. But to recap, yesterday, we talked a little bit about what you really want. So the 3 days, get what you want, why you want it, which we're going to cover today. And more importantly, we're going to dive into the way, so that how you're actually going to achieve it. So just to recap on what we touched on yesterday, we talked a lot about, what is your what? Like, what do you really want to go after? Hopefully you went through, you did the exercise to kind of get clear on the vision, determine a short-term goal, and came up with some action steps. I hope you guys understood the importance of, you got to know what you want, but more importantly, you got to focus on your process and your daily systems that are going to get you to achieve that. Just because from our experience, we've worked with so many people that had the desire to win at such a high level, but the reality is they weren't, doing their daily disciplines that were actually going to lead them to that goal. And, going back to a lot of the things in personal development talks about, more the spiritual side of things, that you can just attract things into your life if you get on the frequency. And the reality is you gotta do the thing to get the thing. And, we're not trying to knock anybody or put anybody down. There's a lot of value in understanding the belief in your capabilities and what you can accomplish. But at the end of the day, your success is always going to be tied to your systems. So Kelly, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, in talking about systems, we talked about how it's such a process, and that the start of that process is really figuring out what you want, and how important it is to really have that goal. And here at 30 Wins, while we think it is vital to have a goal, we are not goal focused. We are action focused. And those actions that you're talking about, they are personalized towards you. And so when we talk about reviewing what we talked about yesterday, it is the what. You have to have what you want. You have to know what you want so that you can figure out the way. And today, though, we're going to dive into the why, because when you come up against any adversity, any obstacles, you need to be able to power through. And we've got some wonderful tools for you to leverage and utilize. And we really went in, not very in depth, but this whole couple of days is talking about how do you win your day. You've got to have that specific goal. And today we're going to talk about really knowing what your why is, and your authentic motivation, so that when those action steps, those very intentional action steps, get challenging or difficult, you're able to sustain continuing to go. And so, winning your day is such a personalized thing depending on your goals, so that you can create those very personalized, intentional action steps.
That's right. And I think, again, if that why isn't strong enough, you're going to quit at the first sign of any kind of adversity. And, if you talk to anyone that's achieved any level of success, you're going to face roadblocks. You're going to face hard times. But this is why I mentioned yesterday, why I think it's so important to find that authentic motivation and understand your drivers. And guys, I can't begin to tell you how surprised I was when I went through this process and thought about these things, because I don't think I really understood my internal motivators and drivers for the good and bad. So I could see why at certain times I had a certain goal and wasn't, necessarily motivated enough to achieve it. And, part of it was, I don't think it was the right goal for me. I wasn't connected to that goal, but also part of it was that, and that leads to why it wasn't the right goal, because the motivation wasn't there to achieve the goal. So again, when we go through this, just understand, like I said yesterday, this is going to be a process. We don't expect you to have every single answer today, but we expect you to start going down the path to discovering this for yourself. And it's something you're going to keep going back to over and over and over. And especially for those of you that lead a team, if you run a company or an organization, imagine what motivates each individual that you work with, right? How to get them into action. Or your kids. Like, this is something that I've actually used with my daughter. So I understand what motivates her. And again, this is why I think it's such a valuable lesson, and it will help you in so many different areas of life.
Really understanding that why, so that you can sustain your motivation over time, is so important. And there's so much research that's gone behind that. Probably the most notable is Simon Sinek. His first book was Find Your Why, and it was for teams and leadership. And he had people that were so interested that they ended up with a research team on how do you find your why. And I went through that facilitation process for corporate teams, and it's hours and hours and days of in-depth analysis and discussions. And Dean Graziosi came up with another method that we're going to share with everyone. But ultimately, what we hope people take away from today is how important it is when you have the right goal. You do have to spend the time to really think about why you want it, and because it really helps you with that motivation over time, that sustained motivation. And so how do you sustain that motivation over time?
Yeah, and I think that's the key. Again, I think we touched on this a little bit yesterday too about, in personal development, when you're at workshops and seminars, that's kind of the artificial motivation, right? You're on that high, you're filling your mind with all this positive information. And by no means are we saying that's a bad thing. But the reality is it's well known, not just within this industry, all industries, that, those kinds of things don't typically produce long-term results. It's that short term, and I'm sure you can all relate when you get done attending and you're on that high, you feel good, you're ready to go take on the world, and then just a short time later things tend to fizzle out. And understand it's not necessarily your fault. Again, that's more the artificial motivation, and this is why this is something that has to be continually worked on. You got to keep developing this and keep working on this.
Well, because we talk to so many clients and they're like, well, I'm just not motivated. Right. And, you and I grappled with that question a lot. Why are they not motivated? Right. And we realize it's not the right goal. Right. It's not something they really wanted. It's really hard to muster up the motivation to do something that you really don't want or care about. We joke about, I love the metaphor of goals and Mount Everest. And I think it's amazing that people would put in the time and dedication, and truly they have to suffer to get up there. But I don't want to. So at any sign of adversity, I'm giving up. I don't have any motivation to do that. This goes back to how personalized this all is. And you will not stay motivated if you don't really want something and you don't really understand the why behind wanting it. And that's the topic today. And you and I both have a soft spot in our heart for it. We love this topic because when we realized this was such a huge gap with why some people were successful and some weren't, we really dived into the research and the science behind it. And we just had a ball learning about it and really looking inward to us and our stories and how this affected us, and how we were going to go about really instilling it in anybody we worked with moving forward, because we realized how vital it is.
Well, I think it was, even think about building 30 wins, the motivation behind building this out. I mean, there's a lot of different things we could have been doing. There's a lot of different ways in which we could be making money, right? For us, again, it was, we've been in this for so long. And, for me specifically, I was always so baffled. Like, I really didn't get why some people won and so many didn't, not just our clients, but even internally within our organizations. Why does one person's result so different? We're all studying a lot of the same stuff. So again, it wasn't the information, it was us at an individual level. And it goes back to, creating those tailored systems. So you got to see how you're operating, how you're thinking, how you're working. And if you don't like what you're getting, you got to make some changes. But see, I don't think we go deep enough to really look at those kinds of things. And, for me, this was very interesting in understanding the 11 types of motivation. And we're not going to get into every single one of these today, but we are going to, I mentioned yesterday, we'll have a PDF that talks about these 11 different motivations. And I would strongly encourage you to go through those and really think about yourself. And think about what you want. Ask yourself, what are my driving factors? And there's really two types. There's the intrinsic and there's the extrinsic. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Kelly?
Yeah, when we started this, I actually had no idea there were 11. And so when I realized there were 11 different categories, I was really blown away. But they do fall into two different categories, and really started me down a path of asking myself, well, why am I motivated with some things and not others? It is, I do have a money goal. I do have a financial goal. And we all need money. We all want money. I love the idea of what money could do for my family. But I'm not motivated by money, right? And I really didn't start asking myself those questions because, you and I have had this conversation, Chris, when the money was plentiful, we became very relaxed. We didn't really have our foot on the gas pedal, but I did in other areas of my life. Because I was motivated. I was very authentically motivated, and I was motivated by fear. I was motivated by fear of being ill long term. I was motivated that my children would have to take care of me, and I was motivated of living a life of being in pain and uncomfortable. And I was very motivated by the fact that I did not want my children to see me that way. So if you would have asked me how I was motivated, I would have said by money. Because the fact is, we do all want money. We do all need money. And I loved the idea of what money could do for my family. But when I dug deeper, I realized it really was nothing of the sort. And so what really drives me is that fear. And I actually was very surprised by that.
Yeah, but knowing that is very powerful. You understand what triggers you. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you guys, this is so later on, the exercise that we're going to take you through is so powerful
Mm-hmm.
because it can't be surface level motivation, just meaning, same with what you were just talking about, Kelly. Like if you would ask me, because we all had money goals, and I think back then, I think it was like 75,000 a month. And if you would have asked me, I could have given you a whole list of the things that would have provided me and my family with.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, yes, I think we all like nice things, but you see, I think most people, there's deeper drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And, asking yourself, why is that important to you? You can actually get to the root, the real authentic motivation of why you're doing why you want to achieve what you want to achieve. And to your point, you did some searching, you discovered it was more the fear-based. And the whole point to this, guys, it doesn't matter what it is for you. It's just you got to understand what it is for you. And it is going to be different on an individual level. So again, this goes back to why this is also personalized.
Well, and you and I love a good quote. We have motivational things around us. We run in circles where people are very positive and success focused, and it's easier to stay motivated in those circles, right? It's easy to stay motivated to lose those 5 pounds when you're going to be wearing a dress to go to your high school reunion and you want to look your best. But then what after the reunion? What after you fit in that dress, right? Then what? How do you sustain that long term? And so we're talking about not the short term motivation of that quick benefit. You and I are talking about those longer term goals, the authentic motivation that's going to carry you long term to achieve those goals, those bigger goals, those more lengthy goals, right? And it's just so important and really quite fascinating.
It is. And one of the people that I've studied was the Elon Musk. So there's a book that just recently came out, and it was kind of talking about, his motivators behind creating things like SpaceX and, was it Solar City and
Mm-hmm.
Tesla? I mean, we look at all these achievements that he's done, that he's accomplished. And, when you actually understand and you study it a little bit, you kind of understand his motivators, his drivers, and he had both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point. You're going to have both,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to understand both. So like for him, for example, part of it was purpose and mission. He had a deep rooted, desire to build, to colonize Mars, because he said, well, eventually if there's some extinction event here on the Earth, what are we going to do? So again, is that likely to happen in our day and time? No. But again, that's something that was closely tied to his motivation. It was a driver. It was a purpose-driven business. And I've seen many interviews where he talked about how he believed that both SpaceX and Tesla were going to fail. Mm-hmm. So he didn't go into them expecting to be financially lucrative. Mm-hmm. But, the money actually helped them build the other companies. So like all these things that he's been able to accomplish, again, it's because there was something bigger. It wasn't necessarily for the money itself. In fact, I read an article talking about he lives in a prefab 500 square foot manufactured home in Texas, right? And it's because, again, that's and the guy, I'm sure, has a great life in other areas. But again, he could have whatever he wants. But see, what motivates him? What makes him want to go out and build another company? Like, why did he go do these things? So again, there's always a deep rooted motivation. It can be things from your past. It can be, an idea of the future. It doesn't matter what it is. But like I said, we got to discover what it is for you on an individual level.
I think, why should this matter to anybody, right? Like, what does it even matter if you even have authentic motivation, or why? And you and I found that there's a lot of reasons to figure out your why behind why you want a goal, and how to figure out your authentic motivation. And so much of it is based in research and science. But at the root of it, it really helps you stay focused on what you want. And it really helps you long-term sustain any obstacles, any adversity that you come across, because it is deeper than just something on the surface. It goes much deeper. And you and I, when we work with clients, we always talk about anything we are working on with them. We frame it. Why does this matter? Why should it matter to you? And then what's the science behind it, right? This isn't just a topic we found fascinating and decided to teach it. This is something that we found, research-based, helps clients stay focused, on track, and moving towards their goals.
That's right. And I mean, and you know this, and I really don't want this to come off or sound wrong, right? But this industry, look, we've been in this industry before it was cool to be in this industry, when everyone and their mother was a coach. But we had talked about this. We were just so sick and tired of hearing all these people talking about how they're going to teach you how to manifest things, and, all these different, how to use the law of attraction. And again, this isn't to say any of those people are bad people or necessarily doing anything wrong. A lot of them really believe that they're doing those things. But at the end of the day, you don't attract what you want in life. You attract what you are. And you are the sum total of your systems. You are the sum total of your processes on a daily basis. And I was tired of talking to people that were such great people, right? They've been studying this stuff for 10, 20, 30 years. And honestly, had seen no transformation whatsoever in their life. Mm-hmm. And that, quite honestly, frustrated me. And that was one of my motivators. That's why I wanted to build this. That's what really got me into action, even starting to study the truth and the science behind what actually works. So again, it doesn't matter what it is, find your motivation.
What's such a big piece to our puzzle, right? Like you said, we've worked with so many clients. We've worked with clients that are coaches that wanted to help people, and they very much believed what they were teaching. So it wasn't even like they were feeding them they were trying to feed their clients nonsense. They very genuinely believe, yet they didn't have a process, a way to teach them how to do it. So if you were trying to teach someone how to, let's say, manifest or attract something, there was no real process. And so when you and I set out to figure out why some people were successful and some people weren't, we took everything off the table and started only adding things back in that we were able to back by science and research, right? And everything else we left off. And, no one knows if we believe those things or not. But what they do know is anything that we teach here, we're able to back with science. We've done the research, and we've read the research to back up what we're saying. And so when you talk about the science and the research and about why we decided that authentic motivation is vital to your success story, knowing that why, having specific goals, is just pivotal for sustained success. We know that there is a lot of research behind that. That intrinsic motivation, it's going to align with your why. It results in higher performance because you're motivated to keep going. You end up being more creative. There's a greater sense of fulfillment. And conversely, that extrinsic rewards, let's say financial gains, or the external recognition that you're getting for achievement, some of that stuff falls short in the long-term drive of success. So it's those intrinsic motivations that ultimately end up being the authentic ones. And you and I have been reading a book called Drive by Daniel Pink, and we've been fascinated by what this means for big teams and corporations and what really ultimately motivates people. And what we found was you have to find your authentic motivation. And we all have that extrinsic, but it's those intrinsic ones that sustain us long term.
Absolutely. And you know, like I said, same for me. Like a lot of this, what I studied, absolutely, it shocked me because again, the power that this has when you understand how this works, when you understand how you work, and when you understand how others work, and not from a standpoint of manipulation, how to get the most out of them, but how to allow them to be more fulfilled. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember I was working with a client of mine, this is years ago, who ran a construction company. And, you know, when I first met him, he asked me, he said, well, what do you know about construction? I said, I don't know anything about construction. I said, but I don't really need to. I know about people. And, you know, so we were talking about ways in which he can grow his company. You know, he was doing about 2 million a year, wanted to get to $1 million a month. And, he was so focused on strategies and you got to have strategies, right? There's no question you got to have strategies. And one of the things that we did, we got his team to work together to help discover the strategies. So rather than him dictate to the team, he got them involved. They felt more part of it. They used their creative, which is more of the intrinsic motivation. They wanted to do this. And he actually incentivized them by the growth of the company. So it was just a win-win. And sure enough, within 6 months, they got to $1 million a month. So what really happened there? Right. And again, I didn't know any of this at the time. So I didn't know intrinsic, extrinsic motivation. I didn't know any of this stuff. Right. I mean, if you would ask me, I said, oh, they just got emotionally involved in their goal. And yeah, maybe. But really what happened is the rest of the team got emotionally involved with their goal, and they had their own personal goals tied to that. And they had the intrinsic motivation, the creativity side of things that help them propel them and keep them moving forward. So again, this is why I think what we're studying here, Kelly, is just not just interesting, it's life-changing. Right. And this isn't to put down anything in the industry. Again, I don't want people to think I'm being, talking bad about it. But again, I just think it leaves a lot out, leaving that it's some mythical thing outside of yourself, when the truth is it's up to you. You've got it. Just got to use it.
Well, Chris, to go back to your example, that team, right? They had a goal. It was to go to what, $1 million a month. They had a goal, but the owner was able to help with everyone figuring out what motivated them, and what was motivating that team was getting them involved. They now had a stronger sense of motivation to help because now they were involved. Now they were a part of it. They weren't just something on the side given tasks to do. They were now involved in the entire process, and they were able to then figure out the way, what to do to get there, right? And so it's actually a great example of when you know what, and now you understand why, that motivation, what was really motivating them. They wanted to get involved, and they were able to take the right action, and they were able to find the way to achieve the goal.
That's right. And not only did they, level up the company by changing their systems, that guy that was running the company, he's a great man. Like he really is. He really cares about his employees. He leveled up his leadership. He really leveled up the way in which his systems on leading his team. And not that necessarily what he was doing before was wrong. It's just he found a way to do it better. He really got more interested in them, is really what he did. People, look, if you really show that you care, people will go to bat, right? They'll help you. And so again, to me, this is why, like I said yesterday, this is one of the more fascinating lessons, because it's so critical. It is so important to maintaining that authentic motivation to keep you carrying on to see that goal fulfilled.
Chris, so, in understanding what your authentic motivation is, we have a wonderful activity that we're going to encourage everyone that's participating with us today to go through. And so now what, right? We're a couple steps into how to win your day. Yesterday we talked about really knowing what you want to achieve, setting that right goal for you. It has to be personalized. Today is the why, really discovering why you want what you want and what that authentic motivation is. And those two things are really entwined. It's not two separate things. At first glance, it appears to be two separate things, but really knowing what your why is, you're really able to go in depth of what really motivates you, what is really behind that why. And tomorrow, we're going to go really deep into figuring out the way, which is which I love what we're going to be talking about tomorrow because it is so personalized. This journey that we are taking you through on how to win your day so that you could ultimately win your life is so personalized. And Chris, I know you and I are excited about this activity. You may be a little bit more than I am because you've been the mastermind behind creating it. Do you want to share what we are going to suggest everyone participating here today does?
Yeah, so today, for the action step for today, we're really going to take you down a path to help you discover your authentic motivation. So again, going back to the AI coach, we created this one to really ask you specific questions to take you deeper, to really think about what is going to motivate you, what is your authentic motivation to achieve the goal that you want to achieve. So if you haven't gone through and found what is the goal, make sure that you do that. So make sure that you do that first. Then go ahead and get started. Again, we'll email out the link for this as well. It'll be in the Facebook group on the back end side in the section where all the replays will be. Go through this. I think you'll find it very, very valuable. Again, I love the fact how the AI coach can actually lead you down a path. And again, it won't think for you, right? This isn't like Terminator where it's going to take over. This is really to take you down a path to get more out of you, to really take you deeper and think about yourself and, what is really going to propel you and drive you forward. Because like I said earlier, it is a necessary step to keep you progressing consistently.
And Chris, I love the way technology has been going because originally when we were creating activities for clients to help them down this path, it really had to be something we did one-on-one to guide them because you have to hear what someone's saying to be able to respond. And a worksheet doesn't do that, right? A worksheet can't anticipate that. But the way that you have programmed the bot is so intuitive. And if you don't understand a lot about AI or bots, what is so fascinating is all of the research we've been studying, all of the books that we've based the foundation of 30 Wins on, all of the system and process that we've created here at 30 Wins is programmed into that. And so it responds very authentically. And it really is able to intuitively answer based on all of those things. And it pulls from them all instantaneously to ask the question and give you suggestions. And so if you are hesitant about trying it, if you didn't try it yesterday, take a few minutes, click on the link, try it, see what you think. We'd welcome your feedback, love your feedback. And I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised at how intuitive it is. And really the path that takes you down to think.
Yeah, and share it in the group. If you have any questions, ask in the Facebook group. Fortunately, the group right now, it's small enough where we can help you guys directly. Mm-hmm. So if you have specific questions or, share some of the lessons, the takeaways, some of the things that the AI coach kind of help you discover, some action steps. We've had a couple of people test this out, and I'm telling you, it's absolutely amazing what it can do. But to Kelly's point, imagine one day you're really struggling with something, you have something that knows your goal, knows you from the inside out. This is kind of the beautiful thing in the direct mentorship. We actually customize this to you. So not just a generic one that we programmed on the back end for everybody, where it's specifically programmed to you. It gets to know you, everything that you're doing, everything that you want to achieve, and it can actually give you specific action steps that you could be doing. So go ahead and jump in. And then tomorrow, big day is where we're going to get into the way. So this is where we're going to start to develop your own system. So again, I hope you guys have enjoyed today. Anything you want to add before we go, Kelly?
No, I think that really and truly, if you ultimately want to be able to figure out the way on day 3, you really have to figure out what that specific goal is for you and really spend some time really thinking about your why and what your authentic motivation is so that we're able to really help you customize the way, which is those actionable steps you would take every day to help you get to your goal.
Love it. All right, Kelly. Thank you. Thank you guys for joining. We'll see you tomorrow.